Hey friends, you're watching Brainstorm Acres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
There's a question about what can you grow in a straw bale bed. We don't have a lot of experience growing in straw bales. We have 2 or 3 years, which has been useful for us. We got some very good results at different times of the year, different years, because part of the issue for us comes into the amount of wind that we have coming across that will dry the straw bales out, the kind of bale that we have, and what was the third thing? Water.
You know, if you're on a city municipal water system, you can pump as much water as you want as long as you're willing to pay the bill.
As long as you can get water, you can grow anything. Now, my answer and Irene's answer, I think, are a little bit different about this. My view is you can grow anything you want to in a straw bale bed. Now, the question is, should you?
Yes, and that's a good way of putting it. I would say grow anything in a straw bale bed that you could grow in a pot. And I'm not just saying a pot, I'm saying a 20 or 30 gallon pot. Anything that you could grow in a 20 or 30 gallon pot, you can grow in a straw bale bed.
It's pretty easy. You just condition the straw bale as usual, and then you plant what you're going to plant.
Right. Now, we have seen someone very successfully grow carrots, and the way they did that was they had conditioned their straw bale, then they took potting soil and they laid it over the section of the top of the straw bale where they wanted to grow the carrots. They put the seeds in, they covered it with more soil, and they watered it just as normal.
And it came out great.
What they're doing in that case is they're using it as a flower pot. You're germinating up in that topsoil that you've put on top, and then it just simply grows down into the straw bale just like anything else. Most people will transplant into straw bales.
So tomatoes,
peppers,
cucumbers, pumpkins, watermelon,
winter squash, you know, all that sort of stuff. Henry said he ran across somebody who had planted corn in it. Why would I not recommend planting corn in it? A couple of reasons. One is you're creating something up off the ground, and corn requires a cluster of corn stalks in order to get good pollination. Creating something off the ground means you're more likely to get blown over, and you don't want your corn getting blown over. I found that the structural stability of straw bales, especially as they degrade over the course of the year, they get kind of fragile.
They compost.
Right, they compost. And we've seen people who've like grown watermelons or cucumbers or something, and as it sort of slumps, it's fine. The plant has no problem with that because it sprawls. But you don't want something that's holding up corn stalks to sprawl because it's going to fall down, and then you're going to have a problem growing your corn. I wouldn't recommend corn. Other than that, I was sort of running through what else would I not recommend?
I wouldn't plant root crops as a general rule, only because you have to be very careful about how wet you get that straw bale.
Right.
If you get a potato in there, and potatoes will grow in straw bales, but if you get too much moisture in there, you may rot the potatoes.
Right. Another problem with straw bales is you don't know what's in them.
You may not know what's in them.
Well, when I say what's in them, I mean in terms of critters.
Yeah, so when we started our first set of straw bales, we got some straw at a reasonable price.
Right.
Straw bales here started about $15 a bale and go up.
Yeah, because it all has to be trucked in from literally the opposite end of the state. They don't grow any straw up around here.
So we weren't sure exactly what was in the straw, so we had to do a bioassay. That's the topic for another day,
right?
Because our primary concern was, were there herbicides in that straw that was going to pollute our soil because we have a small amount of topsoil that we use in our gardening beds here. We've been expanding it by growing more compost ourselves, but we can't get a lot of compost. So we have to be very, very protective of that soil.
Right.
And we didn't want to have herbicides come to spoil everything.
Really, we've made a lot of progress over the last 15, 16 years with the garden, and we didn't want to set ourselves back to zero, which could easily happen.
It could.
We were talking about this earlier this morning, and you know, if a straw bale cost me $15, which is about what a straw bale costs around here, I might as well buy one of the giant containers.
You
bags.
might watch that pen. It's
Stuff it up your nose here. One of the giant bags
Exactly
of,
what I'm saying.
yeah, really, of Miracle Grow potting soil or some other brand of potting soil. I have seen people take those giant bags, literally toss them on the ground, make some slits in them, and plant directly into them.
Now, if you do that, you want to have a few holes poked in the bottom,
Right, so they don't drown.
just like any other pot, because effectively what you have is a plastic pot with soil in it. If you don't have drainage,
Right.
If you have rain, we don't have rain very often.
Right, but during the monsoons, if it comes, we can get 4 inches in an hour, and that could very well literally fill up your thing of water. The whole point being, if I'm going to spend $15 for a straw bale that I'm going to have to fertilize, water, and coddle through the summer, I might as well spend $15 and buy an entire huge bag of potting soil that's ready to go, that I don't have to do anything to except supplement the nutrition as the plants eat it.
This is true for us here, where straw bales are extraordinarily expensive.
And really crappy. I mean, a lot of the straw bales, crappy, not in the good sense, not in the manure sense, but in the sense that, you know, when I'm breaking down the straw bales, the old ones that we had used,
always big sticks.
And I'm like, that's an improperly maintained field.
Or they're expanding the field out.
Or they're expanding the field at my expense. I don't want a whole bunch of sticks that are an inch in diameter and a foot long.
Yeah, and these are not sticks from a plant like cotton. It's pretty common to get the cotton material in straw in some areas.
Right.
But this is actually...
This is like they've been clearing brush and they threw it in there. And you know, I'm still extremely happy with the results that we had from our straw bale gardens, and I'm loving what we're able to do now that we've got composted straw bales and we're able to recycle it into beds. But for me, the amount of labor and the amount of water and fertilizer necessary to turn a rather expensive flower pot into something useful, I might as well just go buy the potting soil.
Yeah, now we love straw bales. They're nice to use. They really are not fun when they're waterlogged.
They weigh a ton.
If you need to move, at least ours are a larger straw bale than you typically will see. They're packed way tighter than what we would see in some parts of the country, like in the South, where I've been. It makes it more difficult to get a spot to plant a plant that you want to have growing in your straw bale.
Now, a hatchet works pretty well, but that tells you how densely packed our straw bales are. That you actually need to use a hatchet or a knife, like a hori-hori type knife, to actually cut it. Even once it's well composted, it still has a huge amount of structural integrity to it. Now, the good part about that is we wound up with effectively really large flower pots with the centers that were rotted, and I actually would just add more potting soil to them.
You mean composted?
Rotted.
Composted.
Rotted. Anyway, but that extra work's not worth it to me. I think if I were say in Ohio, if I were in North Carolina, if I were in South Carolina, most of everything east of the Mississippi, and I wanted to get a garden in really fast.
Straw bales.
Straw bales. Man, straw bales. Oh, I could have the crummiest. I mean, there were places we've lived where the contractors come in and they strip off all the topsoil.
And they cut it all the way down to subsoil.
Yeah. And then they build the houses, and then, they'll be willing to sell it to somebody.
They'll sell you.
They'll sell you your topsoil back. Or sometimes they won't. They sell it to somebody else, and you can buy it from someone else. Great. So you've got this really crummy, poor quality subsoil. If I had a situation like that and I wanted to instantly create
in a hot second,
I would use straw bales.
Absolutely.
But they don't make as much sense here because of our environment.
Hey, you know what time it is?
It is time
It's way time.
It
way
is time.
past time.
I have a ton to do today. Anyway.
I now have a ton of editing to do.
Yes, you do. You do, because we jabbered on.
Okay, say goodbye.
Goodbye. So until next time, bye.